Let's talk about a demand economy versus a command economy, because some people don't understand the difference. And some people who are actually even rather successful in business still don't understand the difference between a demand economy and a command economy. So we're going to walk through this. A demand economy is something to the effect of, like, the government says, we want to build unto our greatness a airport, a brutalist airport that is another monument to architectural stupidity, and we want to put LBJ's name on it because Texans are, anyway. So we're gonna build this airport and we're gonna spend whatever, spare no expense, and make it so. So let it be written, so let it be done. That's a demand or a command economy. A demand economy is really the free market. And now, nobody living today has really experienced a free market unless you're a drug cartel. Like most people have never experienced an actual free market wherein they look at the demand. Is there a demand for something? If we were to go through and start asking people, this is that wisdom of crowd thing, asking them, what is it that you would like to see in your life? Particularly younger people, let's say age 40 and below. Okay, so even I'm outside of this one. And you asked them, what is it that you would like to see in your life? Most, in terms of like on earth, I'm not talking about spiritual salvation or like that. No, we're talking about like on earth. Okay, something that people can actually do something about. What would you like to see? Many of them are going to say, well, I'd like to be able to maybe own a house and be a part of the, be part of the greater economy, right? What is an economy? It's just people. That's all it is. In other words, they want to participate with everybody else. So what does that entail? Now, if you ask them then to go further and you said, okay, describe to me the house that you want, would they say something like, you know what, I need to have a house on the smallest possible lot I can get a hold of. It needs to be the tiniest house I can get myself into. It needs to have the most tyrannical HOA that this planet has ever seen. I need to have Karens up my ass about absolutely everything, every 5 minutes of the day. I need someone out there measuring my yard and so on. Like, I need to have that. That's what I need to have. No, that's not how they're going to respond to that, right? People are going to say, well, I don't want to live in an HOA. I don't want to live in a neighborhood. I don't want to be 6 feet away from my neighbor. Like, that's what they would say. That is the market, people, telling you what they want. They're explaining to you what they would like. And I'm using housing in this example. This applies to almost everything. But like, that's the market telling you what it would like to have, because on a product that already exists. Housing already exists as a product, so therefore we can discuss it. We're not talking about theoretical products that nobody knows exist yet. Okay? So when the market tells you they want that, they want to live, they want to maybe be 30, 40, 50, 60 feet away from their neighbor. They don't want to be in an HOA. They don't want to have somebody up their ass every 5 minutes of the day. They don't want to have ridiculous property tax. Like, this is the market telling you that. So you would think that some enterprising business would say, oh, there's a big demand. Let's produce that because there's a demand for that. Put a pin in that. Now let's go and talk about a command economy. Most people don't understand that they live in a command economy right now, even though it masquerades as a demand economy. Here's how it works. Government says, build unto our greatness a giant, brutalist, disgusting airport in the middle of wherever, right? And here's a bunch of money that I'm going to give to some senator's brother-in-law. And then he's going to be the so-called general contractor. And then he's going to set up a demand for subcontractors to come in. So it looks like a demand, like a demand economy. Like, oh, there's demand. No, it's command, because it's coming from the top down, not from the bottom up. I still get the feeling that there's so many people out there, even people who are a little well-versed on economic theory, that still don't understand that if it's from the top down, it's not, that's command. That's not demand, right? Demand is bottom up. Demand is from the end user up. That's how demand actually works. Is there a demand for this giant, brutalist eyesore airport? Probably not. if you were to ask people, like, what would you like? They'd say, yeah, maybe a nice airport and stuff that looks cool, not some brutalist garbage, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? And they would say, well, I'm willing to pay this much, but I'm not willing to pay this much, right? Because that's how taxes work. People would say, well, I would be willing to pay up maybe $200 towards your airport idea if I think it's going to look kind of cool. But I'm not going to pay $2,000, right? Okay? That's where the sales pitch has to come in. That's where you have to have people who know what they're doing and they have to explain the idea. That's how you would do that. But that's how you get a demand economy. And that's the function of the market from the bottom up, from the bottom of the pyramid up, okay? Everything from the top down is, that by definition is a command economy. This applies to laws, it applies to all different kinds of things. So every time you see, you know, just like the trillions of dollars, they want to give the same people who lost trillions of dollars, who have no accounting for $4.6 trillion at the Pentagon, they want to give them even more money. Same people. No one's been arrested. No one's even been questioned. There hasn't even been so much as a person of interest about any of this waste, fraud, and abuse. But we want to give them another $1 trillion, right? Okay, you follow me? Well, yeah, that's a command economy. That's all that is. That's just, you know, so let it be written, so let it be done. That's all this is. So if you want to have a demand economy, in other words, the people, you know, the marketplace, the actual marketplace, well, then you would look at what they're wanting. And they're not wanting these tightly packed little neighborhoods that look like circuit boards. They wouldn't want that. They would want to be spread out a little bit, at least somewhat. And so they can feel as though they actually own something, not just live in an apartment. I'm just giving you that as an example, but that's the difference between a command economy versus a demand economy. And I don't think there's anybody living today that would know what an actual free market demand economy would even look like, because there's so much distortion. I've asked the question on many occasions on Birdsite, if the government spending went to zero right now, how many businesses would even survive it in 1 year? Probably almost none. That includes small businesses, because small businesses are downstream of all of that. Seriously. I mean, like, you think that everybody's business is safe? You realize that it's something like 1/3 of the entire country lives on government money. That means imagine having 1/3 of your customer base, whatever it is, taken away. And then having to support yourself on the rest of it with all of your debt. Imagine trying to manage your debt with 33% of your revenue gone, right? This is why I run a cash business, because this is why we don't do things with debt, because of this, okay? I'm not trying to get old Dave Ramsey about this. I'm just pointing out that there's a reason why those kinds of things, and it's very difficult to do that. And by the way, just so you know, let me answer somebody's question. In business, there is no way for you to obey all these laws. Let me just disabuse you of that notion right now in business. There is no way. There are so many laws, you have to violate a bunch of them. If you're going to stay in business, you're going to violate a bunch of them. Otherwise, you will end up working for $5 an hour. That is no joke. If you obeyed everything to the letter, you will make $5 an hour. That's just how it is. So you're going to have to get past that too. Like, well, what's the solution? Well, the Second Amendment. Yeah. I mean, that's what you would do. That's why it's there. But anyway, that concludes our discussion on command economy versus demand economy. I hope that made sense.